Syrian Arab Army units attack al-Nusra terrorist dens in Idlib, al-Qunaitira and al-Hasaka, inflicting heavy losses upon them. Syria demands the UN Security Council to implement resolutions which deter Israel from confiscating the Syrian land in occupied Golan. Russia renews support of the efforts exerted by the Noticias in Geneva to solve the Syrian crisis. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Mirado Krikorian from the News Center in Damascus. A unit of the Syrian Arab Army attacked al-Nusra terrorist dens in al-Qunaitira southern countryside, killing and wounding dozens of terrorists. The Syrian Arab Army also targeted terrorists in al-Samadaniya village northeast of al-Qunaitira, destroying their vehicles and military equipment. In al-Hasaka western countryside, a Syrian Arab Army unit inflicted heavy losses on an armed terrorist group affiliated with ISIL in al-Kibr village, destroying dozens of military vehicles. Army fighter jets, meanwhile, targeted al-Nusra dens in Ain al-Soda near Jisr al-Shughur in Idlib countryside, killing a number of them. In the northern province of Idlib, units of the Syrian Arab Army and armed forces killed scores of terrorists in Kfar Haya and on the road between the towns of Zabur, Kfarlata and Rami in the countryside of the province, and destroyed a number of armored vehicles, some of which equipped with heavy machine guns. Syrian Arab Army units also targeted terrorists in Hama northern countryside. Syria urged the UN Secretary General and the UN Security Council to enforce international resolutions for halting Israel's illegal practices in occupied Golan, demanding Israel's full withdrawal. Foreign and Expatriates Ministry addressed two identical letters to the UN Secretary General and head of the UN Security Council, complaining over Israel's recent confiscation of thousands of acres in the Syrian Golan. The letters pointed out that Israel had appropriated thousands of acres in the occupied Syrian Golan as it anticipates the arrival of settlers to execute agricultural projects on the confiscated land. The ministry said that the Israeli land grab runs counter to international legitimacy resolutions, Geneva Conventions and UN resolutions that declared Israel's de facto laws, authority and administration in Golan as null and void, and defined the legitimate rights of the Golan people to their natural resources, including land and water. Israel, the letters added, established 700 new farms, each extending over an area of 65 acres, bringing 90 Israeli families this year to live on the farms, with a plan to bring 150 families every year until the number reaches 750. Russia renewed its support for the efforts exerted by the UN Special Envoy to Syria, Staffan de Mistura, to solve the crisis in Syria, taking into consideration the results of meetings held twice in Moscow over the last period, pointing out in a statement that a telephone call has been made between Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov and Mr. de Mistura over the consultations to be taking place in Geneva with representatives of the Syrian government and opposition, and contacts with influential countries in such a way that serves settle the Syrian crisis. Welcome back. A group of Syrian backpacker activists arrived at Fatima Gate in South Lebanon, expressing deep ties and unity between both peoples.
On the Lebanese-Palestinian borders at Fatima Crossing Gate, a team of Syrian backpacker activists arrived after walking all the way long from Daraa through Damascus to Beirut and to reach their final destination in South Lebanon. The activists held the Syrian and Lebanese flags, asserting the deep ties and unity between both peoples.
We are motivated by patriotic feelings to show the world that Syria is all right. and we insist on living, as the pulse of life in Damascus never dies.
We are here today holding the olive of peace and the branches of Damascene jasmine, but when it's necessary, we will carry the arms along with the resistance men, the Syrian Arab army and the Lebanese army against the occupation.
The Syrian activists planted jasmine, olive and cedar trees in the soil of South Lebanon, expressing the deep ties between Syria and Lebanon.
Finally, Russia warned against any military ground intervention in Yemen, renewing demand to solve the crisis in the country through negotiations. Russia's UN Permanent Representative Vitaly Churkin said that any ground intervention will be full of risks, adding that it's important that negotiations start among all Yemeni sides through the mediation of the United Nations. With this, we conclude our news for today. Thank you for watching. Now to latest business and market news with Serena, but after a short break.
Good afternoon. Oil prices stabilized on Friday following a steep fall in the previous session, as the demand outlook in Asia remained healthy despite growing economic growth. Bonds and stocks across Asia rebounded Friday following a bout of global disorder, although a bruising 3-day left Chinese stocks with their biggest weekly loss in 5 years. Gold slid for a third straight session on Friday as equities and the dollar firmed after sharp losses, while traders awaited U.S. non-farm payrolls data to measure the strength of the economy and its impact on the Federal Reserve's interest rate policy. The New Zealand dollar softened against the pound and the Australian dollar exchange rates, while managing to climb versus the euro in an exciting day of market movement. Meanwhile, the euro is likely to continue to swing in coming weeks as negotiations between Greece and its creditors continue. With this, we conclude our economic news for today. Thank you for watching and goodbye.